All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in Eagle's Environmental Support Division. And I welcome you to our session tonight, our listening session on the Draft Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. This is the second of two sessions. I'm just going to go over a couple logistical details, and then I'll turn it over to James for a minute. First of all, at this moment, all the lines are muted. And we are recording this entire listening session just like we did with the other one, and we're posting it up to YouTube. I will explain in just a little bit on how we will accept comments and listen to you tonight. But before I do that, I'm going to turn it over to James Cliff. So James, you want to come
on? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. My name is James Cliff. I am one of the deputy directors at the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, and really appreciate everybody joining us tonight to provide us feedback on the draft My Healthy Climate Plan. We have a lot of people wishing to join in, so I'm going to skip kind of an opening presentation. The most critical thing that has changed recently is we have extended our public comment period for an additional month. We're going to take public comments up until March 14th. We do have another listening session scheduled for next Monday evening, the 14th, focused on environmental justice issues, but we'll listen to comments on any topic that someone wants to raise. So again, we're looking forward to kind of hearing your input tonight, and Jim will follow up with some of the instructions. And then in the chat, Kimber will put in some of the places where you can put in written comments and when those deadlines are. So if people need to see those deadlines, we'll have them in the chat. So thank you very much. Looking forward to this evening's comments.
All right, thanks, James. All right, so tonight we are here to listen to you. So we're not gonna really be talking, but we will be listening to you, like I said. So what's going to happen is that Kimber France is here with me today too, and she's going to give us a hand with running this. And like James said, we had almost 200 people register to attend tonight, and right now we've got about 135 people logged in, and about 80 people said they wanted to make comments. So I don't know if everybody's going to show up tonight or not, but we had quite a few people saying they wanted to make comments. So what we're going to do is Kimber's got the list of everybody who indicated they wanted to make a comment tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through that list first. Kimber is going to put a list of people that are on deck to comment in the chat. So in your Zoom toolbar, you'll see a button that says chat. In there, Kimber's already put some good stuff in there for you already, but she's going to put the names of the people who said they wanted to comment and are on deck. So if you see your name on the on deck field, you're going to want to raise your hand, because that's going to make it easier for me to find your name and unmute you. So if you see your name in the chat for on deck, raise your hand, because that lets me know you're here. And I will call your name and I will unmute your mic. You'll see something pop up on your screen, or you'll see a little microphone to let you unmute, and then you can start your comment. I'll let you know. Since we do have so many people here tonight, please be respectful of everyone's time and limit your comments to 3 minutes. I will be tracking time with my phone here, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left, and I'll let you know when your 3 minutes are up. And just to remind you, if you have more comments that are more extensive than 3 minutes, or you just don't want to comment tonight, you change your mind, maybe that's fine. Remember, you can submit written comments to us using the email address on your screen. And it will remind you about that again later on. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Kimber, looks like you put the first group of people who are on deck in there. So hopefully you all see that in the chat. And after we get through these people, we'll put another group in there. So be ready. If you see your name, like I said, raise your hand. It makes it much easier for me to find you, because right now we got 150 some people on. So, all right. Well, James, you ready? Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. So the first person I have on deck or in a lineup is Christinaschlitt. And Christina, thank you for raising your hand. I see you there, and I'm going to unmute your mic. So remember also, when you come up, please repeat your name and tell us any organization that you might represent. So Christina, are you there? You're unmuted on our end. You just got to unmute your line. You should.
Yes, I'm here, Christinaschlitt.
Okay, there you go. You can go ahead. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Christinaschlitt, and I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Michigan. Thank you for holding this listening session to gather public input about the MI Healthy Climate Plan. This is an important step for Michigan, and we're grateful to Eagle and the governor for leading the way. As most of us here today know, our state, country, and the whole world are facing a climate emergency. We all need to take bold steps to limit the worst effects of climate change before it's too late. While the MI Healthy Climate Plan is a good start, the plan needs improvements. First, we'd like to say, please focus on Michigan's buildings, especially our industrial and commercial buildings that contribute so significantly to energy use and misuse. The Eagle Plan should require changes to the state building code to mandate efficient use of energy and prompt phase in of the electrification. The plan should include stronger gas energy efficiency standards, direct incentives for electrifying appliances and home heating systems, and set a target of 100% of new heating equipment sales by electric by 2035. The plan should clearly address the tough questions of retrofitting our building stock so that they become energy efficient and capable of efficiency using new technologies such as heat pumps. Second, focus on Michigan's transportation. To really reduce climate emissions, we need to reduce the amount we drive. The Michigan Department of State and other governmental agencies should incorporate slowing climate change in their decision-making process. They must focus on providing more and better public transportation and enabling safe and non-driving options like biking, especially in urban areas. Third, the plan must fully embrace energy waste reduction, which is cheaper than all forms of energy generation. And
1 minute.
Am I done? I'm sorry.
No, you have 1 minute.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you cut me off. Third, the plan must fully embrace energy waste reduction. Fourth, the plan must prohibit the use of nature-based offsets in the energy, utility, and transportation and building sectors. And finally, the plan must actively engage environmental justice communities. We all know the sad reality that low-income communities and communities of color are disproportionately burdened by the negative health effects of living in polluted zip codes. The communities will also bear many of the adverse economic effects of the climate change. The plan should prioritize affordable energy policies. Thank you for your attention to helping to fix our climate emergency while we still can.
All right. Thank you, Christina. That was about 3 minutes exactly. Appreciate your timeliness. All right. So let's move on to the next person. Thank you for your comments. Francesca Stevens. I'm unmuting your line.
Okay. Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Francesca Stevens, and I am a lifelong resident of Michigan. I'm from Detroit, and I'm also a volunteer with the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. And first, I would like to thank Eagle for taking public comment, and I would like to thank Governor Whitmer for taking action on climate. It's very exciting that this commission exists, and I think this is very important work. And so the draft plan, I think, is a solid start, but it needs to be strengthened a little bit. The plan needs a concrete timeline and a plan for implementation because we need to make sure that this work actually gets done. We need to increase capacity in the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, and Eagle to make sure that we can implement this plan once it is adopted. I think climate change is, one of the biggest threats that we face. So we really do need to be investing money into this. We do need to more rapidly increase our use of clean, renewable energy, and we need to prioritize an equitable transition off of fossil fuels to reduce pollution, which we know disproportionately impacts low-income communities and communities of color. And by concrete steps, I mean that we need to phase out all coal by 2032 at the latest, and that we also need to encourage the adoption of a 100% zero carbon energy standard by 2035. I also think that the state needs to commit to ensuring the build out of charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. And we need to support electric vehicle adoption through inclusive incentives. So we need to make sure that all people in Michigan can access electrified transportation, because that's going to go a long way to reducing pollution. I'm also going to echo what the person before me said, that we really just need to drive less overall. And I think we should also be investing in public transportation, which is pretty lacking in our state. And I think that's going to be really important. Okay. So we also need to focus on energy efficiency and energy waste reduction through updated building codes, new financing options, and other means for residents and businesses. This is really important because, you know, generating energy is always going to have negative effects. So we need to make sure that we efficiently use all the energy that we generate. I think we need to set a 3% energy efficiency target for electric utilities. And I would like to thank the commission again for letting me talk. Thanks again for the work you're doing, and I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you for your comments tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Elizabeth Miller. Elizabeth, see your hand up. Thank you. You should be able to unmute and make your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Beth Miller, and I'm a chapter member of 2 Audubon groups here in West Michigan. I'm the secretary of the Awashtenong Islands Audubon in the Grand Haven Spring Lake area. And I'm also a member of the Muskegon County Nature Club, which is Muskegon's Audubon chapter. Thank you to the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy for drafting the Am I Healthy Climate Plan. And thank you for taking my comments today. I am here because 2/3 of North American bird species are at risk of extinction due to climate change. And one of these birds is the wood thrush. The entire thrush family of birds, including robins and bluebirds, have been loved by my family, my grandparents, my mom and myself for decades. But it was the sound of the wood thrush as a children's camp counselor in Michigan's Irish Hills area that drew me more deeply into nature and birds. The first time I heard the wood thrush sing, I felt a flash or a glimpse of heaven that I'm still pursuing today. In fact, one of my favorite authors experienced the same thrill. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "Whenever a man hears the wood thrush, he is young and nature is in her spring. Whenever he hears it, it is a new world and a free country, and the gates of heaven are not shut against him." Have you ever heard a wood thrush? Listen. Isn't that beautiful? Unfortunately, climate change is making it harder for vulnerable birds like the wood thrush to survive in Michigan. We must act on climate change now. We cannot lose more time. The Am I Healthy Climate Plan is an important step toward committing Michigan to net zero emissions by 2050. We are thrilled with the plan, but we hope to see this plan strengthened even further by scaling up the state's use of clean, renewable energy. Wind, solar, and geothermal energy are key to reducing greenhouse gas pollution and to protecting the health of all Michiganders and their birds. In addition, these alternative energies will create jobs, economic opportunity, and equity that will benefit communities across the state. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to addressing climate change.
Okay, thank you, Beth. All right, next person up is Don Burlett. Don, should be able to unmute and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Don Burlett, and I have been president of the Oakland Audubon Society in Birmingham, Michigan for the past 13 years. Thanks to Michigan Eagle for the drafting of this Michigan Healthy Climate Plan and for taking my public comment today. Birds have long been known as the canary in the coal mine, and with climate change, it's no different. In fact, we have seen the loss of over 3 billion birds since 1970. And the birds continue to be threatened by climate change. And this includes the white-breasted nuthatch. And the reason I bring this bird up is because this bird is the logo bird for our chapter. And it's also a target bird, which we use in our study for the Audubon Climate Watch surveys, which are used to detect changes in bird populations based on climate. This also means that climate change has made birds like this vulnerable in our area. And of course, we use the white-breasted nuthatch as a target bird for all of our field trips. So our attention to climate change is both societal and personal. Now, this plan is an important step towards committing Michigan to net zero emissions by 2050 and avoiding the most devastating costs of climate change. As we've seen, the populations have been decreasing, and this is important for us to pay attention to. I hope to see this plan strengthened by expanding renewable energy and by removing the cap on rooftop solar, responsible siting of wind and solar energy, and ensuring adequate staffing and resources to actually implement the plan. The other speakers have brought up all the other important points that are involved in this, and we hope that this committee and this group will take the time to work on a plan with solid plans and enforcement to bring this about. I thank you for your time and thank you for taking the time to listen to this and address climate change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don, for your comment tonight. Next up on the roster is going to be Mark Smith. I don't see Mark's hand raised. Mark, if you're here, you got to raise your hand so I can see you there. Glenn Miller also, I don't see a hand up for Glenn Miller. Sandra Sorini Elsler, I see you, Sandra, and I am going to unmute your mic so you can make your comment.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening. I'm Sandra Sorini Elzer, and I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Thank you for holding this listening session to gather input about the My Healthy Climate Plan. This is an important step for Michigan, and we are grateful to Eagle and the governor for leading the way. As most of us here today know, our state, our country, and the whole world are facing a climate emergency. And so we all need to take bold steps to limit the worst effects of climate change while we still can. And while the My Healthy Climate Plan is a good start, the plan needs a couple of improvements, and I've got some suggestions. First, I want to second the prior comment about focusing on Michigan's buildings, especially our industrial and commercial buildings that contribute so significantly to energy use and misuse. I know firsthand from many years of working in tall office buildings how awful many of the HVAC systems can be. Freezing cold in the summer from too much air conditioning and stifling hot in the winter from too much heat. I hope the Eagle Plan will focus clearly on addressing the tough issues of retrofitting our old building stock so the buildings can become energy efficient and able to use the promising technologies like heat pumps. In addition, the plan should require the state building codes to mandate efficient use of energy and prompt phase-in of electrification. And the plan should include stronger gas energy efficiency standards, direct incentives for electrifying appliances and home heating systems, and set a target of 100% of new heating equipment sales being electric by 2035. Second, please focus on Michigan's transportation. We all know that to really reduce climate emissions, we need to reduce the amount we drive. When I moved to Michigan from Chicago in 1976, I was frankly appalled by the lack of public transportation here in the Motor City area. No regular commuter rail lines, no dependable bus service, bikers taking their lives in their hands trying to get to work on city streets. Urban planning that didn't take walkability into account was a problem. The Michigan Department of Transportation and other governmental agencies need to be required to incorporate slowing climate change in
1 minute.
their decision-making process. And they need to focus on providing more and better public transportation and enabling safe, non-driving options like biking. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much for helping to fix our climate emergency while we still can.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right, next up is Lori Coleman. Lori, I see you, and you can unmute your mic and go ahead.
All right. Good evening, and thanks for holding this listening session. I live in Montague, Michigan, and I am one of the leads on our White Lake Area Climate Action Council, which formed in 2020. And we were able to get a climate emergency resolution passed for Montague in 2020 and in Whitehall in 2021, which is super exciting. It's calling for the city to start planning to reduce their emissions to zero by 2040. A couple of things, I guess. First off, I was able to get through most of the document, and I thought it was very good. I liked that it stated that the plan will be living and we'll have to make adjustments as we move along through it, because there's so much complexity to this issue. Many components will have to change as we, adopt new technologies and move forward. I also liked that you had indicated covering incentives and financial support for lower income residents. And I think this is super important. They cannot even get into electric vehicles or make transitions to their homes without that type of support. So I think that's a very important area to focus on. And then finally, this is more of a question that you probably can't answer, but our team here, we've been immersed in this. So the plan really read, it was very complete for me. I thought it was well thought out. But what I'm finding is that individuals do not even know that Gretchen Whitmer passed this resolution and that this work is taking place. And we're working with people to try to get them on board, and the communication is tough. So I'm hoping that there'll be a solid communication plan that would filter down to cities and small communities like ours, so that they know that this is going on. It's not just a handful of people here in the area who are nature lovers, wanting to save the planet. This is big. This is a big deal. Our state's paying attention to it. And, I hope to see that come down the pipe. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your comment tonight. Next up is Joel Brown. Joel, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. My name's Joel Brown. I'm a lifetime resident of Michigan, a retired attorney and financial planner. I wanted to comment on a few things. First, thank you very much for this opportunity. But number one is critique about the 1% limit on solar panels on an annual basis based on residents in the state. And as I understand it, this has been in place. And people have tried to put in solar panels, let's say past summer, and haven't been able to do it because the allowable amount of solar panels has been exhausted. We should be encouraging as much solar panel purchases to replace fossil fuel produced energy as is humanly possible, but certainly more than 1%, 5%, 10%. I mean, that's an insane limitation. It seems to me that is a DTE, a Detroit Edison Consumer Energy type of compromise for big business that just doesn't make sense. The second suggestion I want to make is similar to New York State. We should have in there a provision that any new home building should require that no stovetop gas or gas stoves be installed in new homes. We might even make that limitation for replacement currently if needed in existing homes, but certainly not in new built buildings and homes.
1 minute.
Yep, thank you. Third, we should have a requirement on limiting or eliminating methane sales in our state. Should happen in the country, should happen in the world. As we all know, it's 30 times more toxic and powerful than equal amounts of carbon dioxide. So it's methane's used in heating, it's used in recreational barbecuing, it's used in recreational purposes. And certainly for new sales, that should be not allowed. And it should be phased out. So there's another thing on methane that goes in
minutes, sir.
Another dimension, thank you, is oil and gas producers, drillers, mining, all have very inadequate controls, inspections for emissions of methane. And we should have the harshest possible penalties and inspections.
Okay, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up because we got to move on to the next
Fine.
presenter.
Appreciate. The last thing is on forestation. 50% of the trees have been lost in the last of all forestry in the last 10,000 years. Half has been lost in the last 50 years. So all the trees that we can get planted should be part of our policy. I
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, let's go on to the next person. Kim Fennessy. Kim, I see you there, and just want to remind everyone that Kimber just added some more people into the on deck list in the chat. So remember, if you see your name in there, please raise your hand so I can find you and unmute you when your name is called. So check out the chat. Also, I forgot to mention that after we get through the list of people who stated that they wanted to comment tonight, we'll open it up to anybody else. So if anybody else, if we still have time, of course, because I've got quite a few people to get through here. So we'll move on to Kim. I see you there, and I've unmuted your line, so you can go ahead.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Kim Fennessy. I'm of Detroit, Michigan. I'm with Michigan League of Conservation Voters, and I'm on to comment in regards to the Eagles draft of the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. As the effects of climate change accelerates, I've seen the effects of little to no action on climate change and communities across Michigan, especially in Southwest Detroit. It's time to stop procrastinating and take action to address the threats that are facing our communities. It's time for transitioning to 100% clean energy. It has to not just protect us, but also the future generations. The Michigan Climate Plan, the draft, its goals, the recommendations, I feel it's a very strong start, but it's definitely need improvements, pushing to put those plans into action, definitely dedicate more resources to Eagle so Michigan can become this national leader on the transition to clean renewable energy. And so I really hope that Eagle will listen to the comments from the public and improve the final Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. making it as robust as possible. So again, thank you for your time. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Moving on, Mary Colburn. Mary, I see you. You can unmute now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm organic farmer and educator from Southwest Michigan, from Allegan. And every week I collect about 300 pounds of coffee grounds and food waste from our local coffee shop. And I was collecting it from the high school and some high schools and the grocery store. But, and every week, but I just do this, and I have done it for almost 10 years, but there's no incentive for us farmers to actually move to carbon farming. I mean, people that care about regenerative agriculture and care about climate change are making that transition, but the incentives don't exist. And I once reached out to Debbie Stabenow and said, how do we stop some of these farmers for cutting down hundreds of acres of trees and burning them? And she said, talk to the Sierra Club. And I'm like, I am the Sierra Club. How is our little team of 12 people, you know, that meet in Kalamazoo supposed to address, you know, farmers? And so what I'd like to see into this climate plan are incentives for regenerative agriculture to recognize that carbon farming, that the soil is an incredible sink for carbon. And we really need to address how can we get farmers to transition and move away, not just from CAFOs, but move away from all the climate destructive practices, from burning the trees, from growing corn row to row, for all of the practices, and get farmers really invested and not really just say, oh, NCRS can do it, because I've talked to NCRS and you know, FSA, and they don't have the resources. They don't have they say, you talk to the farmers. I'm like, oh, good Lord. So we really need incentives, and we really need to address agriculture as part of this climate plan.
1 minute.
Thank you. I yield my time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your comments tonight. Next person up is Ryan Stewart. I don't see Ryan's hand raised, so probably not here. Going on to Renee Wallace. So Renee, you can unmute yourself.
Good day, everyone. I am Renee V. Wallace in Detroit, Michigan, Executive Director of Food Plus Detroit and founder and owner of Doers Edge. Wanted to applaud the recommendations for best practices in farming to improve our soil quality and its ability to address carbon, as well as the recommendation to have best practices in composting to divert food waste from the landfill. Those are all very, very important aspects of common solutions. I'd also like to address, however, a gap. There are many other places along the food system path where we can reduce, we can impact climate by reducing food waste. We can reduce food waste at the source. We can reduce food waste as it is rescued throughout the system, all along every sector. And I'd like to see stronger recommendations and strategies that allow us to really impact that. Food waste reduction and composting have been identified and recognized as two of the highest impacts to reducing climate change, high-level climate solutions. So I'd like to see additional strategies. There were a set of recommendations put forth on food loss and food waste, and we'd like to see those reviewed again and considered for integration into the strategies that are in the draft now. There were policy recommendations that addressed food donation liabilities, date labels, a compost procurement policy, education for food service professionals, education and behavior change through consumer programming, additional focus on the farms, as well as kitchens and other places where food travels on routes to people, having some credits in place for deductions when food is rescued, as well as the great work that's being done through Next Cycle, which is providing more incentive and support to help address recycling and increase our recycling capacity. So I'd like to have us take a look at that, as well as to link this work.
1 minute.
Passage of Part 115. So the recommendation to actually reduce food waste through diversion from the landfills is also dependent on setting policy in place that allows for that work to go forth, and that is represented in Part 115. Thank you for the opportunity to share these comments today. I will submit them in writing as well.
Okay, thank you for your comment tonight. All right, going next one, Robert Pawlowski. Robert, I see you there, and you can go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. Robert Pawlowski here, calling in from Detroit, Michigan. Well, actually a suburb outside Detroit, south of Wayne County. Today, I represent Transportation Riders United in Detroit. I am a big transit activist for 4 systems, one of them being in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and the other 3 being in Metro Detroit, Ann Arbor, and DDOT and SMART. I'm here today to talk about the climate plan and public transportation. Public transportation in our state has suffered for many, many years, and I'm going to echo everybody that is here tonight speaking on public transit and our climate plan. The biggest thing that we need to look at this point is the best ways to get around town and the clean ways to make our air more cleaner than what it has been before. Gas buses have not got us anywhere, but still pollute our air and everything else in the book. Even the nonstop people that want to drive, I mean, teens still want to drive in this day and age. And the biggest thing is, it's not helping the environment. Yes, they want their own freedom, but at the same time, you're killing the environment, especially with, you know, these big trucks. I mean, yes, I'm a big truck person. I'm a really, you know, big on the F-350s, but at the same time, you know, we got to push into something electric. Electric cars are more expensive than they have been in many, many months. And the same thing goes for the car insurance. Who knows when the car insurance is going to go down? I mean, that's why I'm not driving, because car insurance is through the roof. And the same thing with gas prices. Gas prices are insane. And that what it does is promote people to take public transportation. It promotes people to take park and rides. The big thing with the park and rides are you save less, and you also, you save a lot more money in gas, and plus you're helping the environment in return. You know, I take a bus every day. I take dozens of buses every day to get around town. And you know what? The bad part is regional transit is needed in this city. The same thing with Grand Rapids, the same thing with Lansing, the same thing with Traverse City in certain spots. I mean, looking at the climate plan, there's really that needs to be done. Let's push public transportation and let's make our environment a lot better than what it is now. Public transportation will be the biggest key to our climate change plan. And if Governor Whitmer can give us that support, then we can push forward in the city of Detroit to make regional transit better than what it was. We can become Philadelphia. We can become Cleveland. We just need the support. And that's what I'm here speaking on today. All my friends at Transportation Riders United are, you know, invited me to this event, and I just want to see Eagle take some action and go up against the governor and push regional transit in our state. Let's use public transportation and drive less. But as always, thank you for the time and opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Robert, for your comment today. Okay, next few people up. I don't see their hands raised, so these next few people up, if you're here and you want to make a comment, please raise your hand right away so I can get you. Abigail Bartlett. Kendra Wyde. I see Kendra there. Okay, Kendra. You should be able to unmute.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for allowing us this opportunity to provide public comments. My name is Kendra Wyde. I'm the coalition coordinator for My Air, My Health. We are a coalition of health professionals that advocates for clean and healthy air across Michigan. And we do this by educating about the downstream public health impacts of 3 major sources of toxic air pollution and climate warming emissions. Those would be energy production, transportation, and industry and buildings. Public health and climate are uniquely interconnected, and so much of the work on climate has downstream impacts on public health. And we're pleased to see that EGLE recognizes these connections and has incorporated some public health language into the draft plan, but we would like to see it located more centrally. In addition to these comments tonight, we will be submitting a letter with recommendations on how public health can be more thoroughly integrated into the plan. But for tonight, I'd like to specifically focus on public health and energy production in the draft plan. We commend the plan on its goals to advance clean, renewable energy across the state through different sectors. However, the climate crisis warrants a more rapid transition. We recommend setting a goal for 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035, not by 2050. Clean, renewable energy decreases climate warming emissions, but also has the co-benefit of reducing harmful air pollution. Both are directly linked to public health. And the plan specifically highlights the central role of the Michigan Public Service Commission in regulatory oversight of energy production. And regarding the MPSC, it specifically stated, a central component of that role is approving the costs or investments that Michigan's regulated utilities can recoup from their customers via the amounts charged on their monthly bills. So we argue that regulated utilities' contributions to climate warming emissions and the negative health impacts of the toxic air pollution that they emit should also be factored into this equation. We feel these costs should be considered with the same weight that capacity and reliability are considered by the MPSC in their oversight of integrated resource planning. We recommend that the My Healthy Climate Plan actually includes the requirement of a health impact assessment into all integrated resource planning processes. This would help to calculate the human health and climate impacts of proposed energy production by our regulated utilities. We argue that what is viewed by regulators as reasonable and prudent should not only include considerations of greenhouse gas emissions reductions, of which we do applaud, but also the public health impacts of all energy production. Along these lines, a health and all policies approach would include the Department of Health and Human Resources into its plan. We recommend outreach and coordination with MDHHS into your list of other collaborating state programs. Thanks for your time and attention today, and thank you to Governor Whitmer and to EGLE for taking bold action on climate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kendra. All right, next few people up. Hopefully you're checking the chat there. If you see your name, to raise your hand. Alan Metzger. I don't see Alan's hand up. Going to next one, John Patoski. And John, I see you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so hello, my name is John Patoski. I'm a member of the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians and a member of the Michigan Advisory Council on Environmental Justice. Today I'm providing these comments in my capacity as an attorney for Earth Justice in our representation of the Bay Mills Indian community. We will also be submitting these comments in writing. The Bay Mills Indian community is one of 12 federally recognized tribes in Michigan and maintains treaty resources in much of the public land and on the Great Lakes in the state that were reserved to the tribe in the Treaty of 1836, which provided 14 million acres of land and 13 million acres of water to the state of Michigan and reserved the right to hunt, fish, gather, and continue to live as Anishinaabe in our homeland. And part of that promise, part of that deal imposes certain requirements on the state, including not interfering with the tribe's ability to continue to hunt, fish, gather, and carry out our traditional and usual and customary practices as we always have. Climate change will necessarily have an enormous impact on the way that we continue to live in our homeland. And while the state is setting ambitious goals in this plan, there are serious deficiencies that need to be addressed. Firstly, as the state is rolling out this plan, it is simultaneously approving the construction of a tunnel beneath the two of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world. And the tunnel will create at minimum 27,000 metric tons of emissions each year on the low end of the estimate, and 87,000 metric tons at the high end. And that is at least 2.7 billion metric tons over the course of the life of the pipeline. And so while these efforts are commendable, the state is undoing its own action in this plan through its permitting of the pipeline. The state should also work to redress past injustices that have resulted from climate change and its environmental policy, specifically investing in communities that have been left out and divested from our public health and environmental infrastructure. This means health impact assessment, cumulative impacts assessments, and having those assessments actually change the outcome of the decision that the agency is going to make. Lastly, overarching this plan and throughout Eagle's regulatory decision-making, we need a change in culture. Right now, the culture at the agency is one of limiting its own authority, talking about what it can't do. I think the people of this state need to hear from Eagle what it can do to help its people, what it can do to make our lives better and help our climate and our state thrive.
3 minutes.
And so thank you very much for receiving my comments today, and we'll submit more in writing. Miigwech.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we've got next person up, Anastasia Norris. Don't see her hand up. Naraya Sharif. No hand up, so I'm going to let Kimber, because she just put up the next round of people who are gonna be on deck here. So if you would, please raise your hand. Just a reminder, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you think you got more extensive comments, that's fine. Just email them to us using the email that's listed on the screen there on your front of you there. All right, so thanks, Kimber, for adding those names. David Percola. David, I see you, so you can go ahead and unmute.
Hi there. My name is Dave Percola. I'm retired and live in Grand Rapids, but I've lived in Michigan my entire life. I never wanted to leave it. First of all, I'd like to thank Eagle for taking public comment and Governor Whitmer for taking action on climate. And 2 issues right now that are important to me because of time constraints. First is climate crisis is already here, so the plan needs to rapidly increase our use of clean, renewable energy and prioritize an equitable transition from fossil fuels to reduce pollution. It disproportionately impacts lower income communities and communities of color. We need concrete steps to create safer communities and improve the health of all Michiganders by phasing out all coal by 2032 at the latest, and encouraging the adoption of a 100% zero carbon energy standard by 2035. Secondly, focusing on energy efficiency and energy waste reduction through updated building codes, new financing options, and other means for residents and businesses alike is critical. Urban housing stock is older and less efficient, creating higher energy costs for low-income families. Energy efficiency will lower energy costs for Michigan most impacted residents. Excuse me, I gotta get some more. Plan needs to set up a 3% energy efficiency target for energy utility. Energy efficiency is the cheapest and most quickly deployed source of energy. We need to electrify all buildings, lower the cost of utilities, and remove our reliance on natural gas. Also, since I ran out of what I was going to say, I definitely feel public transportation is a massive need right now. But I'll leave that for now, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks for your comment tonight. Okay, next up is Amy Roggey. Amy, you can go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Amy Roggey. I'm one of the co-founders of the Michigan Electric Vehicle Alliance. Thank you to all of the members of the working groups and to Eagle for sure. I know this was a very long, arduous process to get to this point, and I really commend all your efforts. And thank you for letting me speak here tonight. I want to make three main points, obviously concerning electric vehicles. We're going to talk about the health impacts of ICEs or internal combustion engine vehicles. MEVA recently changed their target goal to 100% electric vehicle passenger and light duty by 2030, where previously we were at 2035. And the third point I want to talk about is charging stations. So the biggest one I want to talk about tonight is the health impacts. I'm a physician assistant by trade, and so this is very near and dear to my heart. I commend Eagle, first of all, for putting in some verbiage about health impacts. I would like to see a little bit more verbiage. You kind of touched on air pollution and noise pollution, but excuse me, we also have to think about gasoline tank runoff, which is the largest single threat to groundwater quality in the United States today. And many things in gasoline we know are known carcinogens. And also internal vehicle air pollution. When you're at a traffic signal, particulate matter can be 29 times higher than when you're out in the open road. So think about your child being in a vehicle with you when you're sitting at a stoplight or sitting in a traffic jam. And if your child has asthma or something else, forget about it. So I'd like to see some verbiage about those other things included. Also, some of those things that I talked about actually disproportionately affect frontline communities, specifically the gasoline tank runoff. So that kind of relates back to EJ.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. My second point is why we changed to a target goal of 2030. I'm speaking to the choir here, I'm sure, but huge technological advances just in the last year in EVs, batteries, how they run, whatnot, and also big, huge pledges by the main three auto manufacturers, GM, Ford, and most recently Stellantis. So why not have a target goal of 2030? And then my third main point is charging stations. There's a huge difference between low and high level 2 charging stations and the amount of time it takes to get to that all important 80% vehicle charge, anywhere from 5 to 12 hours. So we'd really like to see verbiage more specifically in the plan about having mostly the high level 2 charging stations or preferably all level 3 or the DCFC charging.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll submit more comments in writing. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Okay, after Amy, it's Brett Berry or Barry Brett. Go ahead.
Can you all hear me? I hit on
Yes,
mute.
we can.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, it's Brett Berry. Good evening, everybody. Brett Berry with Clean Energy. I'm Senior Policy Advisor for the company, and we primarily sell renewable natural gas as a vehicle fuel, and we have, I think, about 550 stations nationwide. But I wanted to comment today and really appreciative of the inclusion of a clean fuel standard, also known as a low carbon fuel standard, as a policy under consideration. Couple points, unlike grant programs and different things, a clean fuel standard moves the entire transportation sector towards cleaner fuels and decarbonization. Also, it is largely a budget neutral proposition. Of course, there's administrative costs with rolling out the program, but the effect that it has would require billions and billions of dollars if it was done through a grant program. So this way it has low impact to the budget, but maximum impact to the transportation sector. And it's also tech neutral. It lets the best technology that's available compete and get those emissions reductions now. There's a lot of debate between EVs and other biofuels. Well, this kind of takes the debate away. Whoever's ready to play and get emissions reductions now, they benefit. And as others come and they're available and they have an ability to be deployed on a wide scale, then they can play and benefit as well. So I think it takes the right approach to get near, mid, and long-term emissions reduction. So greatly appreciate that being included. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Brett. Okay, after Brett, we got Brandi Crawford Johnson. And I see Brandi, so you should be able to go.
Good
Go ahead,
evening.
Brandi.
Good evening. My name is Brandi Crawford Johnson. I'm a climate and environmental justice activist from Michigan. The Office of Climate and Energy has 0 staff working with Mr. Connolly right now and 0 job openings posted on the state website. When Dr. Brandi Brown was appointed by Governor Whitmer as advisor in 2019 at the Office of Climate and Energy, she was not provided any staff for the 2 years she was in that position. There is no possible way the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan can work without a full staff. Eagle must begin the hiring process ASAP. Eagle needs to put air monitors in every community in Michigan as soon as possible to protect public health. The air monitors Eagle does have located in Michigan have most of the EPA criteria pollutants turned off, which is terrifying. These criteria pollutants are required by law to be monitored by Eagle to protect human health and the environment, and they must be turned on immediately on all existing air monitors. Kalamazoo, Cass, and Berrien counties, for example, have 5 criteria pollutants turned off and only 1 strategically placed air monitor placed outside of pollution hotspots. This puts Michiganders at a severe health risk for diseases such as cancer and asthma. I have been researching and collecting this air pollution data for years with the help of experts. Michigan cannot reduce greenhouse gas emissions or protect our health if Eagle is not tracking air quality properly. The air quality results on the weather app on our phones are also false. The AQI is only getting information from the misplaced and turned off air monitors. In order to bolster trust in government, you must truly listen to citizen input and show the public that Eagle is up for the task of protecting the health of our families and disadvantaged communities. Eagle cannot continue to hide public health information and allow Michiganders to get poisoned any longer by non-compliant polluters. Eagle must show Michiganders that you will follow through with real actions. If your job is to protect human health and the environment, you must send out purple air monitors to local governments so the public can insist in monitoring their own health. Purple air monitors are inexpensive and can test for criteria pollutants and volatile organic chemicals. Proper and consistent air monitoring should be at the top of the list in the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Majority of the public is completely unaware of environmental regulations or the poisonous air spewing into their communities at such a high degree. Most of the poisons are invisible. The majority of the public has trusted Eagle and the EPA to protect their health and environment, and they are unaware of the environmental and climate injustice they are facing until it's too late. Now is Eagle's chance for redemption with the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. We are less than 20 years away from numerous climate disasters. Our children and grandchildren deserve better. Eagle officials must use their moral compass. This Michigan Healthy Climate Plan has to be done right, and implementations have to be done quickly to protect humans and the environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brandi. Next up is John Forslyn. John, you can unmute yourself now.
Thank you, Jim. I'm a member of the Michigan EV Alliance and a longtime member of the Climate Reality Project Worldwide, and most importantly for this discussion, an EV owner and practitioner. I would like to see more EVs on the road sooner. It's for all the reasons that have been discussed going forward. We can't breathe that poison anymore. Luckily, the market is working for us. All the major manufacturers are switching over to EVs. And we're actually starting to see ads from Cadillac and other name brands that would not have been expected some time ago. But it is still worth sending a message to the market from Michigan that we want more EVs sooner. And so if we can get to 100 new car sales, 100% by 2030 or 2025 even, that would certainly be wonderful. Some comments have been made about the clean fuel standard, and that's a deep discussion, of course, but as it appears in print now, it's relatively ambiguous. Does that include ethanol? Does that include methane from landfills? Some people have proposed to scrap tires as renewable. I don't think we want to go there, and I would like to see some stronger words in that discussion, even as a starting point. It's not what Michigan will tolerate. It's what we want. Finally, I'd like to talk about how the state of Michigan needs to lead the people. The people need to hear that it's fun to drive EVs, that you can get from here to there. Let me just do quickly a story. A long time ago, my buddy and I discovered we both had reason to go to Minneapolis for conferences. We decided to leave at 8 p.m. in the evening to go to Detroit to see a stage show that we both wanted to see. And then we drove through Chicago to Minneapolis. We had absolute confidence that we could do that. We had never been to Minneapolis before, but we knew there were gas stations along the way, and we could always refuel and get there without any trouble whatever. That's the comfort that the citizenry of Michigan have to get to with regards to traveling with owning, operating, and traveling with an EV. We'd like to recommend that the state of Michigan join the Zero Emission Vehicle Consortium. There are 9 states in it. They have a pretty aggressive plan for, in fact, instructing the public as to how good it is. And let me recommend www.driveelectricus.com. That's driveelectricus.com for some real leading ideas as to how to talk to the public, how to make people aware that there are EV options that will work for them, even if they have range anxiety concerns. All right, I will submit further comments in writing. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your comments tonight. Okay, next is Evan Gonzalez. Evan, you can go ahead and unmute now.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Evan Gonzalez. I live in East Lansing and I'm a PhD candidate at University of Michigan. I study nuclear engineering. I'd like to say that I appreciate all the work that's gone into drafting this plan, and I think it's a good start and it has some very ambitious goals. I think Michigan should most definitely be drastically increasing its renewable energy generating capacity, but I worry about the feasibility of hitting this goal without help from nuclear energy. I recognize that the plan doesn't explicitly prohibit new nuclear construction or mandate that we shut down existing capacity, but I believe the plan is a lot more realistic if the state acknowledges the role that nuclear will have to play in a realistic decarbonization strategy. There's wide skepticism amongst energy modeling experts that 100% renewable is possible with existing technology. It's widely agreed, though, that we can get to a carbon-free grid with majority renewable electricity if we have help from things like hydro or nuclear. Michigan has firsthand experience in failing to meet its increased renewable goals. In 2008, Michigan passed the Clean and Renewable Energy and Energy Waste Reduction Act, and that laid a roadmap for 35% renewable electricity generation by 2025 and had some milestones in there for 12.5% by 2019 and 15% renewable by 2021. But as of October 2021, renewable electricity generation in Michigan sits at just over 9%, as per the U.S. Energy Information Administration. We have plants scheduled in Michigan for closure like Palisades, and it's being scheduled for decommissioning 9 years ahead of its license expiring. And the state, I think, is taking a huge step away from meeting its carbon reduction goals by shutting down plants like that. Time and time again, when nuclear plants close, their dispatchable electricity production is replaced with carbon-emitting natural gas. While constructing new nuclear plants by 2035 might also be a stretch, shutting down existing plants and their carbon-free electricity is most certainly a mistake that we can't afford right now. I think the Healthy Climate Plan should acknowledge that. I also believe, aside from nuclear, that the plan could be better at addressing personal vehicle emissions with an improved public transportation infrastructure in our metro areas, and that we also need to reduce our reliance on natural gas for heating. And I think we can do this by allocating funds for district heating or putting electric heat pumps in people's homes. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Evan. Now it's Brian Craig. I don't see Brian. Oh, there he is. Okay. Brian, you can go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hello, my name is Brian Craig. I'm an architect and educator, a long-term resident of Grand Rapids, now based out of Traverse City, surrounded by the water and lands that make Michigan such a special place. Also surrounded by the $12.2 billion per year Michigan forest economy. I'm here today on behalf of the Michigan Forest Biomaterials Institute, MIFBI, whose board I chair. MIFBI is a not-for-profit organization focused on innovative and responsible production, use, and recycling of forest biomaterials. Our strength is collaboration and convening across sectors to accelerate forest biomaterial solutions. In 2021, we co-convened with Michigan DNR, the Michigan Mass Timber Summit. Currently, we're active in mass timber as well as other forest biomaterial innovation initiatives, including the Finland, Maine, Michigan Working Group. As technologies and material demands change, for example, the significant reduction in demand for paper, what's next? What's the sustainable future of our forest bioeconomy? While structural use of forest products are familiar to many of us, there's real excitement in the possibilities offered by forest-based biomaterials. The omission of their mention as a component of meeting our state's goals seems a significant oversight in the draft Healthy Climate Plan. Our forests can provide on a renewable basis components of products that range from affordable housing to textiles to wind turbine blades, all of which historically rely on intensive energy and often petrochemicals. Industrial development of these materials leads to advanced manufacturing, economic development, that is jobs, while at the same time decreasing reliance on non-renewable resources, increasing carbon sequestration, and potentially lowering costs and creating stable domestic supply chains. Our corporations are already ahead of us. For example, Ford Motor Company and research at Michigan State University are exploring foam for automotive seating and components made from bio-based epoxies. Lignin, along a low-value wood product from trees at higher purity and lower cost than petroleum.
1 minute.
This is not about chopping down our scenery and tossing in a chipper. We know that it is entirely possible to create policies and to manage forests in a way that is both and, delight for the spirit, at the same time a bountiful provider of renewable resources. What it is about is the responsible stewardship of our resources and our inheritance. Please make clear Eagle's support of this stewardship and the forest materials innovations which that stewardship fosters in your climate report. Please also always feel welcome to call on me and MIFBI as a resource in planning our future. Thank you for your time and all best in this important work. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up, Melissa's Maxwell, and I do not see Maxwell Offerman, the hand raised. So the next one up is John McGarry. John, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is John McGarry, and I'm a retired intellectual property lawyer. I retired about 6 years ago, and at that time I became very active in climate abatement. And looking at the 218 UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it stated that the issue is code red. We need to use all of the resources we can to reduce our emissions. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2021 said that we're not making much progress. We haven't reduced our emissions sufficiently to be online for a carbon neutral by 2050. I applaud the Eagle for the program that they have. I think it's very good, but I think it can have some improvements. And I agree with a lot of the things that people have already said. So one of the things I'd like to talk about early is environmental justice. We need to advance policies that prioritize low income and environmental justice communities. The priority for low income and communities of color must be part of the transition. I know that this issue is mentioned in the plan, but I want to say that should be first and foremost. It's the same kind of thing that in the world, that the people who are most affected by the climate change are the people who have not contributed to it. And that's true with the environmental justice program, and that's true with our inner cities. So I think that, yep, sorry. So what I would say, in energy, we need to rapidly increase our use of clean renewable energy and set a goal of 100% carbon-free power by 2035, not 2050. We need to expedite the path up to 100% carbon-free power is crucial for maximizing the climate and public health benefits of decarbonizing the transportation and building sectors. I don't remember seeing much on the decarbonization of the transportation and building sectors in the program. And renewable energy deployment must not rely on false solutions like new nuclear energy, biomass, carbon capture and sequestration, biogas, hydrogen, or carbon offsets. That's typically with cap and trade. The other thing is another
3 minutes.
Thank you. It would retire all coal plants by 2030 and early, and include more strategically and equity translation away from fossil fuel combustion in our buildings, which contributes 40% of the climate pollution in our state. Thank you very much. I will submit my comments in writing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Carol Shukra. Oh, there's Carol's hand up. Okay. Carol, you can go ahead. Carol, if you're there, you go.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Carol Shukra. I'm up here in Traverse City, and I'm a member of League of Conservation Voters, very proudly, and Michigan Climate Action and League of Women Voters. Thank you. Thanks so much for this opportunity to speak, and thank you very much to Eagle for hosting these listening sessions regarding our planet's climate crisis. And to quote a great phrase that's often used, science is real, believe it or not. Here we are. Our planet is in peril. Our climate is in crisis. And we thank you so much for this Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. And it's, as so many have said, it is a great start. But we need to further strengthen its intent by adding greater emphasis on renewable energy and by enforcing a carbon tax. And also, Michigan must allocate more money for additional staff to facilitate the implementation of these suggested wonderful programs of clean air, clean water, and preservation of land. The list of catastrophic climate crisis disasters is unending and it's unrelenting. We all recognize that. That's why we're here. The once-in-a-century natural disasters are occurring at an alarming rate every few years, such as last year's 1 in 1,000-year rainfall that flooded thousands of Detroit homes, and it was taking out power, causing great strife for Detroit's metro population. Another example, the treacherous flooding that caused a dam to break in Midland area. Most of our Michiganders have seen pictures of the terrible wrath and the damage occurred in Midland and beyond when the dam collapsed. And the ever-present is the dilemma regarding, of course, Enbridge's proposed and perhaps fictional Line 5 tunnel. Internationally renowned experts witnesses
You have 1 minute?
Yep. Calculate that if Line 5 tunnel were to actually be built, the result would be over 25 million metric tons of CO2 every year, the equivalent of 6.8 coal plants or nearly 6 million cars in terms of climate pollution. Quoted from Michigan Climate Action, Line 5 and the proposed Enbridge tunnel must be stopped. Please incorporate into the Healthy Climate Plan all efforts to do so. And thank you again so much for providing this opportunity to all of us.
Okay, thanks for your comment. If you haven't checked it out yet, in the chat, there's a new list of people who are on deck to make comments. So if you see your name there in deck, please raise your hand so I can see and unmute you. And just to remind everyone, in case you came on a little bit late, Right now, what we're doing is going through the list of everyone who said they wanted to make a comment tonight. And we've got a lot of them to get through. So we're putting on deck the 10 at a time that are up. And if you see your name, I'm asking you to please raise your hand so I can find you on my list, because we've got a lot of people in attendance tonight. And after we get through that, if we still have time, we'll open it up for additional comments, but not sure if we'll be able to do that or not. So we'll do our best right now. So looking in my on deck list here, looks like Barbara Carr. I don't see her hand up. So next up is Casey Patnode. Casey, I do see you, and you can go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Again, my name is Casey. I'm a senior medical and public health student affiliated with Medical Students for a Sustainable Future and Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action. And just as that perspective or backdrop to my commentary, I'd like to highlight that climate change has been described as the greatest threat to public health that the world is facing by over 200 health journals internationally. And although we in Michigan, some people may feel we're relatively shielded from these effects, the repeated flooding, including in my hometown of Midland, the spread of infectious diseases and more show that this really is not the case. We're not shielded. And this is highlighted in the report, which I appreciate, as well as the unprecedented heat wave in the Pacific Northwest shows that areas felt to be potentially protected really are not, and we're in an unprecedented time. But this really goes beyond statistics. This is affecting real people. For example, I could tell you about a patient I saw who comes into the emergency room in distress with an asthma exacerbation, really dying without urgent medical intervention. And climate change and its drivers, namely fossil fuels, are declining our air quality and resulting in diseases like asthma. And this patient may not have even been in the ER that night if not for these factors in their environment. And in a lot of ways, we on a population level are like that patient on their individual level. And we need the urgent and significant action to prevent our demise, which is certainly encapsulated in this plan, but the plan does need to go farther to meet that urgent and magnitude of scale that we need. So in terms of specifics, I'd like to reiterate what has been said by some other folks, that we really needed to set a goal for 100% carbon-free power by 2035, not 2050. Because of the urgency of this issue. And likewise, all coal plants should be retired by 2030 or earlier, as coal is the most dangerous and least cost-effective way of producing energy. The plan must advance policies that prioritize low-income and environmental justice communities, including eliminating the cap on rooftop solar that's been highlighted. Enabling community solar would allow for a lot more autonomy and ownership over renewable energy.
1 minute.
Thank you. In these areas, and making sure that the community is involved in these decisions, such that these Justice 40 commitments are implemented well in ways that make sense in these areas. I'd also like to highlight, partnerships with local governments was highlighted. In my work as a Dow Sustainability Fellow, we were working with the local government level with EcoWorks, which is a great nonprofit out of Detroit who could potentially provide some insight to this as well, and partnerships, but providing some incentives or financial help up front for municipal wastewater biodigesters would go a long way towards helping to alleviate the energy burden on these communities that is done through fossil fuels, mainly right now.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In case you remember, if you need to make more comments, you can just submit them in writing to the email address on the screen.
Thank you.
Okay, after Casey, James Dreher. James, I see you. You can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. I listened to your comments the last time a few weeks ago. I sent some comments into you, so I won't repeat those. One thing that I did notice from the last presentation, that there was no mention of geothermal. And there just so happens to be a very nice place in Michigan. I went to Michigan Tech, and up in Calumet and Laurium and Houghton, there's many, many deep shaft mines where just a natural condition of using the heat energy of the earth can be used. And I would think that Upper Peninsula Power would be able to take advantage of that. The second thing that I wanted to mention is the other natural resource you have is offshore wind that is using the Great Lakes, which you have 3 of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world, about 1/5 of the world's supply, that would give you enough energy to almost take care of all your energy needs in a whole year if you had that fully done. Then the third thing, somebody brought up the fact that you have only 1% allowable PV, and I thought it was bad in New Hampshire, and then that DET was very forward thinking, but now I'm kind of rethinking that. Actually, PV is the answer, and that should be unlimited. So that's all I have to add to the comments, which I've already submitted to you. And those comments came from an RFI that DOE and GSM started, and those comments will probably be published sometime this month. But I've already sent those to you. So that I rest of my time someone can have.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Next up, we have Chad Rush. And I don't see Chad's hand up. So next up is Debbie Freeman. Debbie, I see you there with your hand up, but I'm getting a warning that says that you need to update your Zoom. So that happens every once in a while where we try to let you talk and it doesn't let you. So if you're there, please go ahead, and you might have to go out and come back in, but if you can, go ahead and do that and send me in and raise your hand again, and I'll call back on you. So I need to go next to the next person though. Sorry about that, Debbie. John Dykes. John Dykes. I don't see your name up there. Daniel MacArthur. Daniel, don't see a hand raised for Daniel. Ed McCardle. I'm keeping it moving on here. Kurt Kissling. I don't see Kurt's hand raised. And Elizabeth Del Buono. Oh, there's Elizabeth. Okay, good. All right, Elizabeth, I will let you unmute so you can go ahead.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much for your time and your hard work on this. My name is Lisa Del Bono, and I'm a founder and executive director of Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action, or MICA for short. As a physician advocate, it is clear that we are truly facing a climate health emergency. Air pollution and the climate crisis are impacting the health of Michiganders today, especially in communities living closest to fossil fuel pollution. People of color are 3 times more likely to breathe unhealthy air, and they have suffered the cumulative impacts of pollution in terms of health and well-being for decades. Most people are aware that air pollution leads to problems with breathing, especially asthma in young people, but few people realize that air quality gets worse as temperatures increase, or that 8 counties in Michigan received a failing grade for ozone levels last year. About 1 in 10 premature deaths in the US are attributed to fine particulate air pollution. And there's a correlation between this air pollution and memory problems in the elderly, preterm deliveries, low birth weight and stillbirths in pregnant women, and a higher mortality or death rate for those infected by COVID-19. So MICA applauds the governor for centering her climate plan on health, but we encourage the plan to be sure to consider equity and climate resilience front and center, recognizing that those who have historically been disproportionately impacted by air pollution are those who are starting to feel the impacts of our changing climate first. As Casey noted just a few minutes ago, A few months ago, editors from over 200 medical journals issued that if we don't reduce emissions in half by the end of the decade, it will, quote, be catastrophic for human health. If Michigan is going to do its part, we need to drastically pick up the pace in which we're reducing our emissions, including setting 100% carbon-free electricity goal. You get it? By 2035, thank you, not 2050. Phasing out coal and natural gas, removing caps on rooftop solar installations, and encouraging community solar projects, to name just a few things. Finally, I'd like to echo the comments of Kendra Wyde's that in the My Air, My Health coalition to utilize a health in all policies approach. Specifically, we would like to see the climate plan call for a health impact assessment as part of the utilities integrated resource plans. These efforts are a win-win because they not only reduce heat trapping gases, but they also clean up the air. And those living closest to polluted industries and heavy traffic will benefit the most. So in summary, the draft is a good start, but we can do better and we must do better if we want to protect the health and well-being of Michiganders. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Jacob Harold. Harold, I'm not, oh, there's Jacob. Okay, go ahead, Jacob. You should be able to go.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Hi, I'm Jacob Harold and I live in Oak Park, Michigan. The current draft of the Healthy Climate Plan reads, a vast majority of vehicles on Michigan's roads will still be burning gasoline in 2030. Therefore, it is strange that 3 out of 6 of the key focus areas are for purchasing new EVs and not ways to reduce emissions from the cars that are already on the road. If a vast majority of vehicles will still be burning gasoline in 2030, then it's critical that we have stricter vehicle emission rules and inspections to make sure that those older vehicles are still running as clean as they were designed. Michigan needs to join the list of 33 other states which have emission inspections. Further, with the EV-focused plan, Eagle neglects the environmental impact of other forms of transportations like trains, boats, buses, bikes, or even walking. It never mentions airplanes, which is noteworthy given that DGW had in 2019, on average, 1,100 flights per day. Michigan has the opportunity to radically improve its transportation, following successes like the Ann Arbor to Detroit shuttle bus, the Amtrak speed upgrade to Chicago, Detroit's implementation of complete streets, and the Woodward Road Diet in Ferndale, hopefully coming later this year. Imagine what a coordinated effort and adequate funding will have on our transportation's emissions. This plan suggests to invest in a cleaner, more efficient public transportation system. Where's that money coming from and how much? DDOT and SMART have been asking for more money for years, but there's no answers coming for them for this draft. The key focus areas should be ways to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions when we move goods and people, not subsidizing the purchase of their new electric car. Other states and countries have concluded that even with the adoption of electric vehicles, they would be unable to hit their emissions target without reducing vehicle mile travel. We need a VMT reduction plan, and this should be the #1 transit priority for 2030. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comment. Okay, next up is Irma Leapart. Irma, I see you there. You can go ahead and unmute your line.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Irma Leapart. I am an organizer with the Michigan chapter of the Sierra Club, a member of the Equity Action Advisory with the Healing Our Great Lakes Coalition, and chair of the Water and Infrastructure Committee of City Council Green Task Force. Many of the commenters thus far that emphasizing that we are in a crisis. The time is urgent. And I also want to thank you, those that have worked, well, I was part of a work group too, but in the section titled Leadership and Action, there's specific reference to the plan to protect 30% of Michigan's land area by 2030 or 30 by 30. This plan must include of 100% remaining wetlands. protecting the existing wetlands and waterways by establishing a moratorium on the destruction of wetlands and use existing planning processes to encourage the preservation and restoration of wetlands. It's good that we're planning to restore them and create more, but certainly the bits of newer wetlands won't be as great as protecting the wetlands that already exist. We will have an immediate avoidance of emissions, and by protecting them, there's no cost. There's no additional cost to do that, just not allowing people to destroy them. I'd like to remind us that Michigan has 11 areas of concern or highly polluted waterways. We have billions in the Great Lakes region and Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding to remove these water bodies state a impact or undo gains that we've made. So again, I ask that we establish a moratorium on the destruction of wetlands. As part of this, we need to be bold. We need to face up to developers and, just know that our future is at stake. I'd like to also add that I believe we should have robust monitoring of all the actions that we're taking. I know there's language around this in the plan, but certainly good data is needed so that we can track our progress and understand and know that there are things we might do that have a less benefit and others that will have more, and we need to be able to identify those very clearly. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I just want to let you know, you did break up a couple times during your comments. So if you do have written comments, Irma, if you wouldn't mind submitting them also, just to make sure we get them in full, just to let you know.
I will, thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay. Next up is Adita Sito. And I see you there, and you can go ahead and mute.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. Again, my name is Adita Sitko. I work with the Union of Concerned Scientists. I have a few brief comments tonight focusing on the electricity sector goals in this draft plan, and we look forward to providing more detailed comments on energy, transportation, and building sector provisions in our written comments. First of all, thank you again for all the work on this draft plan. We support the plan's emphasis on transitioning Michigan to 100% clean, renewable electricity paired with robust energy storage. But we do urge the plan to pursue a faster timeline of reaching carbon-free electricity by 2035. We believe this is important for meeting interim reduction goals, but also in ensuring that the power sector is prepared to handle the increased electrification that's coming from transportation and buildings on the way to economy-wide carbon neutrality. We also urge you to consider moving the goal for all coal plants to be retired by 2035 to a faster timetable, at least 2030, and that these plants not be replaced with construction of new large gas plants. This is the path being pursued by other utilities like Xcel Energy in Minnesota, which is another state that's seeking to end its use of coal in the power sector and also to avoid heading in the wrong direction with increased use of fossil gas. In addition, we encourage the council to look to states like Illinois with the recent passage of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act and consider the Michigan power generation portfolio holistically, thinking about mechanisms to prioritize both carbon and pollution emission reductions, especially in communities most impacted by the cumulative pollution from energy and industrial sectors. We also support the plan's focus on distributed customer-owned solar, needing to play a much greater role in an equitable and effective energy transition. However, the plan should encourage specific policy changes. As others have mentioned tonight, this would include eliminating the cap on distributed generation and requiring utilities to allow customer-owned community solar and storage. The draft plan mentions inclusions of long-range transmission planning in state energy planning efforts. We encourage the plan to say more about the role of transmission, both in state and regionally, and the need for state policymakers to continue advocating that grid operators ensure the transmission system is not a barrier to Michigan achieving its energy goals. Lastly, we understand that the plan can't be completely prescriptive. However, it is important to have safety rails to ensure that most impacted communities are able to be part of the decision-making and in creating and implementing this plan. We're glad to see there's additional hearings set and would like to encourage EGLE and the council to continue amending the process to ensure that the communities most impacted by the energy sector pollution, climate change, and the transition from fossil fuels are included in this way. Thank you. This includes ensuring to address the call for environmental justice communities that a comprehensive plan needs to include resilience and crisis preparedness, energy affordability, and strong targets for air pollution reductions. Thanks for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is Forrest Cohn. I don't see Forrest's name up. Grayson Eklund is next. Grayson, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for accepting my time and comments. This is one of the most important steps towards combating climate change. And again, like those before me have said, it needs to be more specific and strengthened. I live in Chelsea, Michigan. I'm a 17-year-old and probably the youngest person here. I have been aware of climate change, but it wasn't until recently when the IPCC released their 2021 Code Red report that I realized how serious the crisis is. Within the past few months, since the IPCC report has been released, I've come to the realization that unless plans like the one proposed by EGLE are successful, I will not be able to raise a family, get married, or have a long, prosperous life. The sea will probably be empty by 2050, given on our current trajectory. And I would just like to put out there that this climate change plan is quite literally my future, my friend's future, and all my classmates' future. I think that one of the direct ways to combat climate change starts at our cities and their design. We need to focus on city zoning and how the effective zoning incentivizes suburban sprawl and subsequently increased road construction and motorized vehicle traffic, which is horrible for the environment and our mental health. According to the EPA, 29% of the United States 2019 greenhouse gas emissions were from the transportation sector, which was the largest sector of greenhouse gas emissions for America. According to another study by the National Laboratory of Materials and Structural Models at the University of Costa Rica, for every kilometer of road paved, 65.8 kilometers of CO2 is added to our planet. It seems to me that our biggest obstacle towards actually combating climate change is how we stop the growth of car dependency in Michigan and more broadly America and the world. My preference for the climate change is that we should focus more specifically how important building cities that disincentivize car ownership and motorized vehicle roads through mixed-use zoning, public transit, and how important those are. Reducing car ownership and car-dominated roads is so important. There's not only benefits for the climate, but also benefits economically. Cities that design themselves around the pedestrian, like Amsterdam and numerous European cities, are naturally release less greenhouse gas than any average American city, just because of how they're built and designed. We must stress the importance of smart city design and public transit in all of our large metro cities. Using land property allows for cities to have property tax to actually pay for climate change prevention programs and not go bankrupt like Detroit due to incorrect or not the best usage of land. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Grayson, for your comments tonight. Okay, next up is we got Cindy Haidu Banks. Cindy, you can go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cindy Haidu Banks, and I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I've been a resident of Michigan for most of my life. I am a retired high school teacher, and I want to express gratitude to Governor Whitmer for being a strong leader on taking action on climate change. I want to thank Eagle for taking public comment today, before today, and after today as well. Important to be listening to what I'm hearing is a very educated public here. As a retired public school teacher, I understand the importance for a clear plan with a timeline, clear objectives and goals. In the 7 years that I taught social justice, my students and I became painfully aware how the use of fossil fuels and the resulting pollution of our air and water affected our communities of color and communities with less resources. For decades now, we have been aware of the damage of our dependence on fossil fuels is having on our natural environment and on our people. Why are we so slow to act? Why can't we break our dependency on fossil fuels? We have the knowledge, the science, and the technology to create clean energy. I join the call to phase out the use of coal by 2032, and I hope to live to see this day. I ask you to adopt 100% zero carbon energy standard by the year 2035. Please, I implore you to implement a plan with clear steps to reach these goals. It is my hope that my former students, my son and my granddaughters, and their children's children will enjoy the magnificent natural beauty of our Great Lakes state.
1 minute.
This can only be if clear, concrete action is implemented. Tonight, I have heard many remarkable proposals that I hope you will consider. I want to thank Grayson for speaking out about his future. Thank you to Mr. Patoski, Ms. Crawford Johnson, and Ms. Shukra, and many more for creating awareness for serious issues that must be addressed. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight and to support this important work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, Jaylee Lautner. Not seeing a hand raised. Going to Jessica Schick. Jessica, you can go ahead and make your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jessica Schick. I'm 18 years old and currently a pre-law student at Grand Valley State University. I'm also a West Michigan regional organizer with the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I appreciate that Eagle has taken the time to listen to public comments, and I thank you and the governor for taking action on Michigan's climate. The My Healthy Climate Plan is a good start, but needs improvements to work towards environmental justice and make sure that we can implement this plan once it's adopted. It must include a concrete timeline and steps for implementation to ensure that Michigan can achieve economy-wide carbon neutrality by 2050 through the use of clean energy. My younger siblings and I grew up in a world where we were constantly bombarded with news of environmental catastrophes. Our school was canceled at least once a year due to climate events such as heat waves, floods, droughts, or severe winter storms. And as I'm sure you know, these events are directly caused by climate change and the warming of our atmosphere. They disproportionately affect low-income communities and people of color, trapping them in a cycle of injustice. To ensure equal safety and health of all Michigan residents, the plan must work to phase out all coal usage by 2032 at the latest, and encourage the adoption of a zero carbon energy standard by 2035. This will help us to begin a recovery for all Michiganders and to protect our most vulnerable communities from climate change. The faster that we reach carbon neutrality, the greater the chance that I and other members of my generation will see climate recovery within our lifetimes. We need to strengthen the My Healthy Climate Plan to make Michigan a national leader in addressing the climate crisis and transition to clean energy. This
One
is the
minute.
best way to ensure a healthy climate for Michiganders now and in the future. Thank you again for your time, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thanks, Jessica, for your comments. Okay, looking at the list, Elizabeth Hauptman. Don't see a hand up. Joshua Van Camp. Don't see a hand up, so going on. Reminder to look in the chat. If your name is in the chat, it means you're on deck, and you should raise your hand so I can find you and unmute you if you want to make a comment. So next up, Jim Zook. And Jim, I see you there. You can go ahead and unmute.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to provide input on the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. My name is Jim Zook, and I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Corn Growers Association. The Michigan Corn Growers Association has more than 1,400 members and represents the interests of Michigan's more than 14,000 corn farmers. It is impossible to address climate and decarbonization without talking about the contributions of Michigan's farmers in finding solutions and safeguarding Michigan's environment. One of these avenues is through growing corn to produce clean burning ethanol fuel. To that end, we are pleased to see the inclusion of a clean fuel standard to provide a range of low carbon fuel options for Michigan's consumers. Any such standard should include E15 and higher blends of ethanol fuel. Ethanol is a low carbon fuel that reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 44 to 52% compared to gasoline, and ethanol's carbon intensity has declined by 23% since 2005. Just switching to E15 across the state of Michigan would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 580,000 metric tons, equivalent to taking more than 126,000 vehicles off Michigan roads each year. According to a U of I study, E85 fuels have a lower carbon score than electric vehicles when calculating Midwest electric generation systems. Furthermore, university studies show corn is the #1 crop for pulling additional carbon out of the atmosphere because corn absorbs that carbon over the course of the growing season. And Michigan farmers are continually improving efficiency through technological advances like guidance systems where precise nutrient application occurs. And this increases productivity on the same land with fewer nutrients each year since 1936. Additionally, corn ethanol is available immediately to help us meet carbon reduction goals. Every car that was built since 2001 or later can use up to 15% ethanol, and flex fuel vehicles can use up to 85% ethanol. Unlike electric vehicles, this technology is already available and ready to go and is something we should seriously invest in. In the rush to embrace the next big thing, we should be careful not to leave out the reliable solutions already in our toolbox. Waiting to reduce carbon until electric vehicles are widely available is a missed opportunity. The more we do today, the bigger the impact we'll have overall. As the state makes plans to reduce carbon emissions, low carbon fuels like ethanol should have equal treatment with electric vehicles. Incentives and credits for purchasers, manufacturers, and retailers should not favor one source of carbon reduction over another. A true all of the above approach to the problem will provide the best outcomes for Michigan, not only because of the carbon impacts, but because ethanol is truly a Michigan-made product. It is produced at plants here in Michigan from corn grown by Michigan farmers, which creates jobs and economic opportunities across the state. Agriculture has always been a key part of the solution in addressing carbon emissions, and we hope that the final Michigan Healthy Climate Plan will reflect that. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments. All right, Kylie Conklin. Don't see Kylie here. Newt Nadelhofer. Newt, I see you there. You can go ahead. Newt, if you're there, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and make your comment.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to the governor and her administration and Eagle for developing this draft plan and also for inviting public comment. I have only 2 comments and they'll be brief and I hope non-redundant. I'm an emeritus professor at the University of Michigan. For 18 years, I directed the University of Michigan Biological Station in Pellston on Douglas Lake. I am a board member of the Environmental Law and Policy Center. I've worked with a couple Citizens Climate Lobby chapters in Michigan, up north and in Ann Arbor, and I'm a member of the U of M Voices for Carbon Neutrality. However, I'm speaking for myself. My research, my professional research is on the carbon cycle. I study soils, plants, and the atmosphere and how they interact and feed back to the climate system. And I'd like to address two omissions in the report, which is otherwise very strong. First, there's no mention of engaging any of Michigan's 15 public universities in partnering with either the state or with the communities in which these universities are embedded. I think the state should provide some incentives and encouragement for our universities to embrace the state's timeline of a 52% reduction in emissions by 2030 and 100% carbon neutrality by 2050 at the latest, preferably earlier. This plan should provide expectations that publicly funded universities work first to achieve the state's emission reduction targets in their facilities and operations, and also in their investments. And second, that they partner with municipalities and counties within which they are embedded to jointly pursue emission reduction. This would have a huge impact on our state. Second, agriculture and land use. Several of the previous speakers have spoken about it, but it really in the report, it's only discussed in the last section, the natural features and food section. It should receive more attention by including this topic as a key focus area of the report. After all, in figure 2, agriculture is listed as being responsible for 10% of our emissions, following buildings, commercial and residential, 12%. So agriculture is there. 1 minute? Okay. I just would include agriculture as a focus area. Finally, following up on Mary Colburn's topic, we need to be storing more of our organic waste in the soil. We can do that by having statewide compost programs modeled perhaps by the 2020 California composting law, which requires all municipalities who do refuse collection to have composting as a required option. Thank you very much. I yield the rest of my time if there's any left. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Richard Kobe is next. Don't see a hand up for Richard. Laura Goldberg. Laura, you can unmute.
Great, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Laura Goldberg. I'm the Midwest Director of Energy Equity and Affordability at the Natural Resources Defense Council, and I'm a member of the Michigan Energy Efficiency for All Coalition. While the plan includes some notable recommendations, it needs to be stronger in focus and ambition to meaningfully reduce emissions in buildings and homes, prioritize energy and housing affordability, and establish equitable processes that directly benefit and influence decision-making and the execution of the plan. Energy efficiency is an essential and foundational tool for combating the climate crisis and for making clean energy and the grid work effectively. Simply put, clean energy goals are not achievable without efficiency. Efficiency is also the biggest part of Michigan's clean energy job sector at 65%, with room to grow, including in the diversity of the efficiency workforce. Michigan risks costly, less equitable state policy solutions if energy efficiency is not a stronger focus. While the plan does call for increasing the annual EWR savings targets, the draft proposal doesn't move beyond the status quo for efficiency in Michigan, as DT and consumers are already required to hit this level of savings. The plan needs to include a bigger, bolder vision for energy efficiency and affordability. The draft plan misses a critical opportunity to leverage energy efficiency investments to address energy and housing affordability. Energy efficiency and weatherization are one of the most effective means of ensuring long-term energy affordability for families struggling to pay their bills. Almost half of Michigan's renters spend more than 30% on rent plus utilities. In Detroit specifically, Black, low-income and low-income multifamily households face the highest median energy burdens. And despite this, energy efficiency programs have historically underserved Michigan's most energy burdened communities. While investments have increased, low-income households are still not equitably benefiting. If Michigan wants to achieve its climate goals, it must follow best practice. It must require target and specifically tailor programs to serve low-income households in affordable buildings. It has to focus on longer-lived, high-impact efficiency measures like air sealing, insulation, electric heat pumps, and other electric efficient measures.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Dedicate funding to health and safety repairs. Finally, in order for energy efficiency and affordability programs to reach all Michigan communities, decision-making rooms and processes need to look and feel different. While the plan has some environmental justice considerations in one listening session, the draft recommendations and plan need to go further on this. The plan must prioritize guidance already given, offered by Michigan's environmental justice communities, such as MEJC's Climate Ready proposal. The plan and its implementation must be co-created with environmental justice and energy burdened communities. This is a key inflection point for Michigan's elected leaders to shift who gets to decide what Michigan's energy future looks like. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Next up is Terry Link. Terry, you can go ahead. Terry, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and make your comment if you like. All right, doesn't seem that Terry's able to unmute. So I'm going to keep going on. Larry Junk is after Terry. So Larry, can you unmute your mic there? Good.
Hi, I am Dr. Larry Junk. I am a practicing physician still at work at the end of my workday. I'm a member of Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action. We are an organization of physicians, nurses, and other health professionals concerned about the health impacts of climate change. I'm also a member of Citizens Climate Lobby. Among the health problems from the burning of fossil fuels, I'm going to mention just one, and that's the health problems from the burning of fossil fuels creating air pollution. It's a well-established medical fact that the air pollution is responsible for large numbers of deaths in Michigan. About twice as many as from vehicle accidents, twice as many as from gun violence, twice as many as from suicide. The burning of fossil fuels can be divided into three large categories: transportation, electricity, and heating. To decrease and phase out the use of fossil fuels, we need to work on all three categories, partly by conservation, but in large part by substituting sustainable sources of energy. The Commission's plan is strong on transportation by its promotion of electric vehicles. However, converting the fuel source for transportation from the burning of petroleum to the use of electricity is helpful only if the electricity comes from sustainable sources. The Council's plan is weaker on the other two categories of energy use, electricity and heating. The key step that must take place for all three categories of energy use is to move us from electricity derived from burning fossil fuels to electricity from sustainable sources. This must be done by promoting wind and solar energy at the scale of large utility installations. This will require getting our public utilities, especially DTE and Consumers Energy, to move toward wind and solar on a rapid timetable. The public utilities are allowed to have a monopoly on energy distribution because they are expected to serve the public interest. Now is the time to require that these utilities prioritize the public interest and rapidly gear up solar and wind energy. My recommendation is that the report include an enforceable timeline for Michigan utilities to move us towards sustainable sources, not less than 50% by 2030, not less than 100% by a date much earlier than 2050. I wish to thank the members of the Council on Climate Solutions for writing this excellent draft plan for the people of Michigan.
All right, thank you for your comment tonight. I'm going to go back and see if Terry Link, are you able to unmute yourself now, Terry?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. First of all, I want to thank James and Jim for your long commitment to Michigan's environment through Eagle and its predecessor names. I want to thank for the opportunity for citizens to offer constructive criticism tonight to the work that Eagle and the Commission has done with this plan. And I just want to piggyback on Dr. Needlehofer. yes, we need more, the universities to get more engaged with this. I'm the founding director of the MSU's Campus Sustainability Office some 20 years ago. I'm retired now. There's so much to applaud in the draft Michigan Climate Action Plan, and these comments only focus on what I believe is missing and should be added. Your attention to waste reduction in both energy and materials is commendable, and we should make waste reduction on all fronts target number one. Kind of a quick quote would be, turn it down or turn it off. I suggest the plan should greatly increase the energy waste goals on page 11, which are 2% for electricity and 1% for natural gas, and they should do so dramatically. It's ridiculously low, especially based on what's needed. The approach that you mentioned on page 14, quote, energy waste reduction strategies such as improving insulation, installing energy-saving lighting, and investing in more efficient factory equipment, end quote, is a necessary one, but it's insufficient. As is your call on page 12 for increasing recycled materials, quote, triple the state's recycling rate to 45% by 2030 and strengthen public and private sector procurement programs to favor the use of low carbon and circular economy products, end quote. You can triple that rate, but if you increase production at the same time, you may increase total waste. I've been involved in recycling for almost 4 decades. We have to remember that recycling is a tailpipe solution. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. The largest gaping hole in the plan from my perspective is the naive sense underlying the report that all is repairable through technological improvements on the supply and demand side. Of course, developing new efficient technologies are necessary, but that also means building more stuff that necessitates additional material and energy throughput. Nowhere did I see any mention of conservation. Conservation is the cheapest and most effective step to reduce greenhouse gases. Efficiency might mean installing a new programmable thermostat for your HVAC system, whereas conservation would have you reduce the temperature 1 degree in the winter or correspondingly raise it in the summer. It was good to see that you address environmental justice in the plan. Indeed, poorer folks have a heavier proportion of renters who have little control over the insulation and efficiencies of the homes they rent and suffer other environmental inequalities. However, if one looks at that challenge through the justice lens globally, it is clear that we in the developing world need to reduce consumption even more dramatically if we are to provide more desperately needed prosperity in the developing world. The coming impacts of climate change will hit those in the developing world hardest, even though we in the developing world are the responsible parties. Technology alone will not get us there in time based on all the reported data curves. I'll stop here. I appreciate your time. Thanks very much for the opportunity and good luck in the future.
Okay, thanks for your comments tonight. Up next, we got Lisa Spitz. I don't see Lisa's hand up. So Sarah Lupin, or Sandra Lupin, sorry. Sandra, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thanks. Good evening. I'm Sandra Lupien, Director of the Mass Timber at Michigan State University program. Thanks for the opportunity to weigh in on the My Healthy Climate Plan. This plan's a heavy lift, and I commend everyone's hard work. I'm going to talk here tonight only about forests and forest products, building materials, and plan implementation. First, forests and forest products. Michigan forests and forest products do and must play a critical role in achieving carbon neutrality. In Michigan forests, urban trees, and importantly, harvested wood products, they remove 10% of all CO2 emissions in the state through sequestration, and they store the equivalent of 37 years of all CO2 emissions produced in the state. But the My Healthy Climate Plan leaves out forests and forest products, and I hope that you'll please engage foresters in updating the draft plan to prioritize action in this critical sector. Regarding building materials, buildings account for about 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions, with about 29% of that attributable to the energy required to operate buildings. The draft plan rightfully places significant focus on reducing these types of emissions, but it leaves out building materials and construction, which account for about 11% of emissions. We have to tackle both operational energy and embodied carbon in building materials. In the My Healthy Climate Plan, we need to commit to reducing the carbon intensity of our mainstream building materials and to making it easier to build with mass timber, which is less carbon intensive to produce and which actually stores carbon sequestered in the forest in our buildings. The plan mentions that the state has launched a mass timber program, but only in the context of economic development potential of advancing the use and manufacture of these materials. The plan doesn't highlight the important role these products play in uniting forests with our built environments as part of a holistic approach to achieving carbon neutrality in Michigan. Nor does the plan include any recommendations to support mass timber manufacture or construction, such as by updating our building codes or offering financial incentives for using mass timber or manufacturing it in Michigan. So I urge you to include such recommendations in the final draft of the My Healthy Climate Plan. These actionable items, along with many others, were recommended by the Council on Climate Solutions work groups, but so many of these specific targets, policy interventions, programs, et cetera, aren't reflected in the draft version of the My Healthy Climate Plan, which really means this draft represents more of a vision than a plan. And that's okay. Articulating a vision is an essential step in this process, but the essential next step must be to create a roadmap to implement that vision. I urge you to include in the final version of this document language to assemble a team to draft the My Healthy Climate Plan implementation roadmap, using as its foundation the strong work of the Council on Climate Solutions work groups. So in summary, add a focus on forest harvested wood products, address carbon in building materials, including by supporting mass timber, and get together a team to draft an implementation roadmap. And please don't hesitate to call on me as a resource. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. James, it is now just past 8 o'clock. I'm just checking in with you on where you sit with time and everything, how much longer you want to go.
Let's continue a bit longer. I think we've got at least 20 people signed up. We don't know how many of them are actually still with us. Let's start to move through those. We don't suspect that we will have time to go to anyone who is not signed up in advance tonight. My guess is we'll see how quickly we can get through the last 20 and see if we can get through those. But again, I don't suspect we'll get to anybody who wasn't signed up in advance. We will have another opportunity next Monday for another listening session, but let's power through. And again, to the extent that you've heard comments before, again, reinforce those, but try not to duplicate to the extent possible. But thanks.
All right, thanks, James. Okay, we're gonna hang in there for a little while longer, everybody. You've got yeah, you can see on deck, we added another list of people there, so you can raise your hand if you're on that list. Michael Mulberry. Don't see Michael's hand up. Okay, going on to Jesse Deerenwater. Don't see Jesse. Nate Rabiere. Not seeing Nate's hand up there. Okay, keep going here. Nicole Marcotte. Nicole, I do see you there, so you can go ahead and unmute your line.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
My name is Nicole Marcotte. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Thanks for taking the time to hear my comments. First of all, I'm grateful that the draft of the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan sets our state on a strong path toward reducing energy use and emissions and protects future generations by addressing the impacts of climate change. As the mother of 3 young daughters, a climate activist, a volunteer for Moms Clean Air Force, living in an underserved community of Detroit, a former educator and daughter to elderly parents who struggle with health issues related to pollution, I'm deeply concerned about the climate crisis and how it's impacting.
I'm sorry, Nicole, sorry to interrupt. Is that your line that's making, I'm picking up some extra noise there. Is there?
Okay, 1 second, let me.
Okay, I just want to make sure we get your comment.
Right, I apologize for that.
Okay.
Move to a different space. Are you able to hear me better now?
Yeah, we're just getting some shuffling sounds. So I don't know if there's someone else that I can't see that's got their line unmuted for some reason. It shouldn't be, but just want to make sure everybody's got their line muted if you have it. But go ahead, Nicole. I'm sorry.
Okay, should I begin again or just?
No, just keep going. I won't count that against your time. Just go.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm deeply concerned about the climate crisis and how it's impacting Michigan citizens' health and quality of life in the present and changing our future for generations to come. Although the Climate Council's draft plan is off to a good start, concrete steps for implementation should be crafted before a final recommendation is made to the governor. And I know this is something numerous people have said, so I wanted to reinforce that. For me, particularly including the following: rapidly increasing our use of clean, renewable energy is one way the plan can meet the urgency of the climate crisis. In addition, by prioritizing an equitable transition off of fossil fuels and therefore reducing pollution, our communities can be saved from the negative health impacts that these emissions cause. And then also low-income communities, such as the one I live in, must be prioritized. Environmental justice must be realized by eliminating the cap on rooftop solar, enabling community solar, and supporting federal Justice 40 initiatives. I hope the Department of Environment and Great Lakes and Energy will take into consideration the public's feedback and improve the final Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, including timed concrete plans for the implementation to make it as strong as possible. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Okay, Paul Kerman. See Paul's hand up. Pa Waiter Parhar. Don't see a hand up. Olivia Presley. Nope, not there. Paula Sizemore. Don't see Paula. Todd Ellis. There's Todd. Okay, Todd, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Good evening to members of the working groups that are here and to everyone else who's still listening. My name is Dr. Todd Ellis. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan. My doctorate is in atmospheric science, and I'm an expert on how global precipitation changes as a result of increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. I'm thankful for this opportunity to provide a brief public comment on the draft Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, and I'm grateful for the work that has been done to date on this important framework. While the draft plan represents a good start, in my opinion, it's not ambitious enough in its clean energy goals if we are to do our part to avoid the worst consequences of climate change. In addition, I believe more work needs to be done to prepare Michigan to be resilient to the climate impacts that are already inevitable. The draft plan states that the goal for the energy sector is to achieve 100% clean renewable energy electricity by 2050. I would argue that this goal should be established by the middle of the next decade if we are to make a meaningful impact on the flux of carbon into the atmosphere from the energy sector. And the sooner we phase out coal as a power source, the better off we will all be. Excessive rainfall in short periods of time is one of the hallmarks of our changing climate future. We've already seen the impacts of that excessive rainfall with inland lake flooding near Kalamazoo, urban flooding in Detroit last November, and the dam failures near Midland in 2020. These kinds of events are going to occur with greater frequency as the climate changes, and any plan to reduce our climate impact needs to be met with a plan to deal with the impacts that are already locked in by our previous inaction. Our climate is already sick, and a healthy climate plan needs to alleviate the symptoms as well as treat the cause. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I appreciate the work that has been put in to date and encourage you to keep working to strengthen this healthy climate plan before its final release. Good night.
All right, thank you for your comments tonight. Okay, moving on to Scott Marek. Don't see Scott, so I'm looking for Ryan Roberts. I do see Ryan there. So Ryan, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'd like to thank the commission for putting together this plan and giving us the opportunity to speak and comment. My name is Ryan Roberts. I'm a resident of Portage, Michigan, just outside Kalamazoo, and I've been living in West Michigan since 2008. I grew up in Southeast Michigan, moved out here in 2008, and I'm proud to call myself a lifelong Michigan resident. My comment tonight is a very general one, surrounding how aggressive we have to be in addressing the climate crisis. There's been no shortage of speakers tonight addressing the fact that this is in fact a crisis. Is the greatest crisis of our time? I don't think that's hyperbole. That said, I do not think the plan as written is nearly aggressive enough in addressing climate emissions and reaching targets in a time frame that will produce meaningful results for ourselves, our children, and our children's children, because that is ultimately who will be facing the burden of our choices today, our grandchildren, the people who come after them. Human beings are not the greatest at understanding things on such a large time scale as what climate change occurs over. And each second that we delay our implementation, each year raises the cost of the necessary steps to ensure our future. That said, I do not believe 2050 is a realistic goal. I do not believe 2040 is a realistic goal. We must have complete abandonment of fossil fuel energy production by 2030. Any later than that, and we are starting to run into issues where the effects are simply are too catastrophic to maintain human life. So with that in mind, Michigan is the home of Detroit, the Motor City. We invented car culture. We're in the position today to reinvent car culture around electric vehicles, to do away with the internal combustion engine, a technology, I believe over 150 years old at this point, and take out one of the sources of greenhouse emissions. It will be expensive. It's going to require tax credits, vehicle buybacks, emissions penalties, infrastructure building. All of these things are expensive today. They will be more expensive tomorrow. They will be more expensive a year from now.
Yes, 3 minutes, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. That's all.
All right. Thanks for your comments. Just a reminder, if you got extra comments you want to make sure you can just submit them in written to the email address on your screen. On deck, got the last group of people on deck here. Sarah Peterson. And Sarah, I see you. So I'm going to unmute your line. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, my name is Sarah Peterson. I'm speaking from Detroit, Michigan as a member of the Green New Deal and Eco-Socialist caucuses of the Democratic Socialists of America. The most fully developed portion of this document focuses on the transition to single occupancy vehicles, framing it as a transformative solution to climate change. This, frankly, is unacceptable and reflects not a transformation, but a continuation of the status quo that has gotten us deep into the climate crisis in the first place. It will not work. Such policies that funnel state money into corporate hands, thereby trusting private interests to solve public problems, will not give us a livable climate and environment, but will only continue to deepen our dependence on profit-driven polluters who have driven carbon emissions from the get-go. As others have mentioned, more needs to be focused on solutions that reduce our need for energy in the first place. We need a regular, expansive public transit system and infrastructure for non-motorized transportation that reduces our need to drive, thereby reducing the number of cars on the road, and our need to endlessly expand and repair expensive road and parking lot infrastructure that contributes not only to carbon emissions, but also flooding, sewage overflows, heat island effect, and the loss of natural areas. We need a food system that is localized and secure, reduces wastes and pollution, and reverses the destruction of natural areas and loss of topsoil that further drives climate change. We need homes that require less energy, not just for homeowners, but also for renters who are less able to afford energy and who are and will continue to suffer most from climate-related disasters and emergencies. We need to ensure that all people have access to clean water and air and stable homes so that our lower income and unhoused communities will not suffer further injustice when these disasters occur. Here in Detroit, we know all too well the effects of trusting corporate energy is to solve our public challenges. This is a land of water shutoffs and sewage overflows, and some of the worst air pollution in the country.
You have 1 minute.
We expect and demand better. Instead of supporting private sector solutions, we need to be building public infrastructure and public programs to support a true transition to a more sustainable society. This can be funded through taxes on the biggest polluters and emitters of carbon, corporations and the wealthiest residents of the state who enjoy some of the lowest tax rates in our country. Money needs to be redistributed and invested in communities that have suffered the most extreme disinvestment in our nation. We need to block the Line 5 pipeline and other fossil fuel-based infrastructures that threaten to pollute our air and water and will lock us into carbon emissions for decades to come. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comment tonight. Okay, Anthony S. Don't see Anthony S. Dave Crandall. I don't see David Crandall. Samantha Williams, I see you there, and you can go ahead and unmute your line.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. This is Samantha Williams with the Natural Resources Defense Council. I'm our Midwest Region Director for Climate and Clean Energy. We're a national environmental organization, but we have a very strong footprint in Michigan and across the Midwest. And I've personally worked on clean energy issues for over a decade with Michigan as a core focus. I want to comment tonight on the energy production elements of this plan. So as the draft plan makes clear, electric power production in Michigan is one of the largest sources of GHG emissions in the state, only second to transportation. We're thrilled to see in the draft plan some very important commitments on the clean energy transition. That includes a renewable energy standard, that includes 80% GHG reductions in electric power production by 2030, getting Michigan off coal plants in the 2030s. And the state facility is also leading by example by moving to renewable power. Taken as a whole, however, we recommend the draft plan dramatically accelerate the shift to clean power at the pace recommended by scientists worldwide to ensure a livable climate. That means getting to 100% carbon-free power in Michigan within the next 10 to 15 years. This comment reflects, is consistent with many other comments to that effect. The transition to clean power on that timetable is a no-regret strategy. It is in fact critical to meet the administration's net zero by 2050 economy-wide goal. So power sector is where most of our near-term and most cost-effective decarbonization opportunities are and will be for the next decade. This is the timeframe that the administration has made clear you are most interested in this plan. The electric power grid is going to be the engine of decarbonization for many of the other economic sectors like transportation and buildings. Simply put, if we do not speed up the pace now on energy, clean energy, it'll be much harder and more costly to cut emissions in other sectors. And every leading national study backs this up, from academic institutions like Princeton, Harvard, and UC Berkeley, to think tanks like Energy Innovation and environmental groups like my own. And that's why you see the US commitment to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, leading with clean energy, and we think Michigan should also follow suit. Moving fast on the energy transition is also an economic development strategy. It's a powerful job creator for Michiganders. So with this context in mind, we recommend the energy production part of the draft plan first retain the commitment to 80% GHG reductions by 2030. Second, move up the goal to getting off coal from 2035 to 2030. Set a further goal of no new gas-fired power plants in Michigan. Fourth, speed up the timeline for Michigan getting to 100% carbon-free power, which is in line with the science on climate change and also commensurate with the US commitment that's already been made. And waiting until 2050 to get to that point for the power sector is simply too far away. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Okay, moving on. We got Ann Wywoody. Don't see Ann hands up. Terry Gates. Terry, I see you. You can go ahead and unmute your line there.
Good evening. My name is Terry Gates, and I'm a lifelong resident of West Michigan. I am the Executive Director of Healthy Planet Strategies. This past summer, I did have the privilege to be a part of the development of the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan as a member of the work group for energy production, transmission, distribution, and storage. We have a moral imperative to reduce our carbon emissions as much as we possibly can based on what we know. The upward trajectory for the warming of the planet is projected to exceed 2 degrees by the year 2035 if we continue business as usual. This will result in catastrophic conditions to the health of the people and to our planet that sustains all of life. The urgency for climate action cannot be overstated. Page 14 of the draft states that the overall success hinges on how much and at what speed we can add more renewable power to the grid. The plan should meet the urgency of the climate emergency by more rapidly increasing the use of clean, renewable energy, especially solar, which needs a much greater emphasis in the final plan. People and businesses will continue to burn fossil fuels until they are given a more cheaper, more efficient, and more equitable alternative. Renewable energy alternatives are economically and technologically viable, and they must become our new reality. Page 17 of the draft states that customer-sited solar is already taking off. Solar will become the primary source of power in Michigan. More staff and resources are needed to create a bold climate plan to implement community solar installations and to assist local governments in adopting best practices for siting renewable energy systems. House Bill 4236 needs to be enacted to remove the solar cap. House Bills 4715, 4716, and 4955 need to be enacted to promote the use of community solar facilities. Community choice aggregation should be pursued, and we need a massive, immediate crusade to install solar panels everywhere possible, on rooftops, all over, on properties, and on water, and even more creative ways that we have not even imagined yet. Barriers to adopting affordable and accessible solar need to be overcome. Low to moderate income communities are generally in urban areas where they are surrounded by buildings. Once solar installation costs have been incurred, the price for solar will be extremely affordable as the sun provides free energy. Research and development in battery storage is vital. We need to pursue Michigan Saves for funding, and we need to become more energy efficient because of that cannot be separated from injustice and inequity. When it comes to greater energy independence, nobody should be excluded. Thank you for this opportunity to help strengthen the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Okay, after Terry, got Tim Minotas. I don't see Tim. Anthony Pachorek. See Anthony. Valerie Rincon. Okay, Valerie, I see you, and you can go ahead and unmute your line.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Valeria Rincon, and I'm a member of the Natural Resources Defense Council's Midwest office. My work focuses on equitable building decarbonization in the Midwest, and today I wanted to speak to some recommendations for advancing equitable building decarbonization policies in the state of Michigan. The draft plan currently talks about building electrification as an area for innovation. And while innovation is always encouraged, it's important to acknowledge that electrification alternatives to fossil fuel powered appliances are available today, and we don't need to wait to start developing policies in the interest of people and communities, not fossil fuel companies, that enable the state of Michigan to meet the heating and cooking needs of its residents in the cleanest, healthiest, most affordable way. As the draft plan references, residential and commercial buildings account for approximately 20% of Michigan's total energy-related carbon emissions. And with less than 8 years to reach 52% emissions reductions, the draft plan needs to lay out a long-term vision for equitable building decarbonization, essentially eliminating the use of fossil fuels in buildings by switching to efficient electric appliances powered by zero carbon electricity in a way that prioritizes the most vulnerable communities. Specifically, the draft plan should aim to accelerate equitable building decarbonization by recommending the adoption of all electric ready codes in new construction beyond the adjustments proposed in the plan to the 2021 Model Energy Code, establish building performance standards for existing buildings, express explicit support for state-level action that establishes incentive pathways for fuel switching measures, prioritize electrification efforts in underserved communities by requiring a certain percentage of efficient electrification in low-income homes and coupling these efforts with policies to ensure that renters are not displaced due to the increased value of their homes post-retrofit. And finally, most importantly, ensuring Black and Brown communities are part of the decision-making process and receive sufficient and sustained direct support so that they are prioritized and benefit from the transition. In concurrence with these goals, the draft plan should also address strategies for pursuing an equitable transition away from our current fossil gas utility system. It should follow the lead of cold weather states such as Minnesota and New York and present a vision for a stakeholder gas distribution system planning process that will identify ways to decarbonize Michigan's gas utility system in an affordable and equitable manner that mitigates impacts to customer bills and avoids wasting resources on new fossil fuel infrastructure incompatible with a livable climate future. I want to thank the efforts of staff and the administration to chart a roadmap to a cleaner, healthier future for the state of Michigan. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide comment on this draft plan and look forward to continued engagement on this effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment tonight. John Morris. Hold on one second. John Morris. Okay, John, I'm getting a notice here that it says you're using an older version of Zoom, and so it won't let me unmute you. Sorry about that. So if you can quickly jump off and jump back on after your thing updates, we'll try to get you. Otherwise, gonna have to submit your comments written, or I guess come on the next day, the next one we're having the 14th. We do have a couple more people that I noticed weren't on the list, but who are on our list, but weren't put into the what do you call it? The roster. Sorry about that. Ashley Solciak. Ashley, you can go ahead and make your comment.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So my name is Ashley Sotishek. I'm the Climate and Environment Program Director for Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities. I really appreciate the opportunity this evening to share my organization's feedback on the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, and I'm grateful to be afforded this opportunity by EGLE. We recognize that this plan was set in motion by Governor Whitmer's ambitious climate goals aimed to reduce energy consumption and to facilitate a just transition to renewable energy. While the draft version of the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan represents a solid step in the right direction, there is more that we can and should do to protect current and future generations from the worst impacts of climate change. Temperatures have already climbed 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit in the last century, leading to increased heavy rainstorms and flooding, reduced Great Lakes ice cover, and more frequent extremely hot days. Climate change poses a direct threat to our regional public health, economy, power grid stability, water quality, food security, and biodiversity. Because of that, this plan should set a more ambitious standard of 100% carbon-free electricity generation by 2035, not 2050. Additionally, existing coal-fired power plants should be retired by 2030, not 2035. This plan should also restrict any further build-out of fracked gas infrastructure and should incentivize energy efficiency. We recognize that this will require significant investment in renewable deployment within our current energy system, but the cost of delaying action to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change will far outweigh the cost. Plus, making a rapid transition to clean energy also supports a vibrant economic future for Michigan. Additionally, to create significant carbon reductions in other sectors, we need to adopt additional policy measures. For the transportation sector, we must reduce vehicle miles traveled in the state. The plan should require transportation agencies to include greenhouse gas emissions in their decision-making and planning processes, and urgently provide Michiganders with more transportation options by funding the expansion of public transit and investing in bikeable, walkable communities, and by supporting critical investments in EVs and rail infrastructure. To address emissions from the building sector, the plan should support the adoption of the most updated ICC energy codes. This will reduce costs, limit resource use, and minimize the negative impacts of fossil fuel energy use in the residential, industrial, and commercial sectors.
You have 1 minute.
Finally, this plan must center on meeting the needs of frontline and environmental justice communities after significant consultation. This means making investments in weatherization, especially for low-income families, troubleshooting emergency response protocols, workforce training, removing barriers to community solar, removing the current cap on distributed solar generation, setting air pollution reduction targets, ensuring the Justice 40 commitments are adhered to, and aligning with the MEJC's Climate Ready program. Thanks so much for your time this evening and consideration of our feedback.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. And we have one last person up, Elizabeth Hopman, who was called earlier, but I think we missed her. So Elizabeth, you can go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Houtman. I live in Brighton with my family, and I'm the field manager with Moms Clean Air Force Michigan. We have 30,000 members here in Michigan and over 1 million nationally fighting for clean air and climate for the sake of our children's health and future. Michiganders are experiencing climate change today with more flooding, coastal erosion, warming of our Great Lakes, and extreme weather. Climate change is causing our lakes to warm faster than our oceans and impacting fish populations. These changes affect commerce and recreation for all Michiganders. Also, these hotter temperatures are causing increased ground level ozone pollution or smog. Smog is a lung irritant that triggers asthma attacks. My son, Oscar, has asthma, so I understand how vital clean air is for his life. He is one of 166,000 children in Michigan who suffer from asthma. Michigan has some of the worst asthma rates in the country, according to American Lung Association. In the summertime, parents like me need to check our weather apps to see if it's safe for our children to play outside. It is far too often we have to rush home after a game on a hot summer day to use his nebulizer. While the Michigan Health Plan is a great draft, but we need strong standards and commitments and goals to protect public health by 2030, to protect our children and our planet. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth, for your comments tonight. And with that, that's all the people that were on our list. Yeah, James, I'm going to turn it over to you. Go ahead.
We appreciate everyone who's kind of stuck with us tonight to the end. We appreciate all the comments. Again, people can still submit written comments to the email on the screen here and on the web page. We will have one more listening session next Monday. But again, thank you for your participation this evening.
Thanks, James. Thanks for everyone for joining us tonight. I want to remind you that the recording will be available. We'll try to get it up on the climate webpage by the end of the day tomorrow. Hopefully you have it there. Thank you all for joining us and have the great rest of your evening.